Welcome to the channel, the Coin Lore Vault. Imagine, just for a second, that you're cleaning out an old drawer, maybe your grandparents' dresser, or a dusty jar that's been sitting on a shelf for decades, and you pull out what looks like an ordinary quarter. A 1995p Washington quarter. You almost toss it into a change jar without a second thought. But wait, what if that single coin, that tiny silver disc that looks like it's worth exactly 25 cents, is actually worth $133 million? That's not a typo. That's not a rumor. That is the staggering, jaw-dropping, almost impossible to believe maximum value that the rarest and most perfectly preserved version of this coin has been estimated to reach among the world's most elite collectors. And today we are diving deep into the story of this coin, why it exists, why it matters, and why it could be hiding in plain sight right inside your home. But before we go any further, I need you to do one thing. Stay until the very end of this video because the coin's coming up after this one. I'm not going to tell you their values yet. I'm not going to give you the numbers. But I will tell you this: they will shatter everything you think you know about pocket change. Stay with me, because what's coming next will leave your mind completely blown. Now, let's talk about the 1995p Washington quarter, and let's start at the very beginning, because to truly understand why this coin commands the kind of money that could buy a mansion, a private jet, or fund an entire lifetime of luxury, you have to understand the world it was born into. The year was 1995. The United States Mint in Philadelphia, that iconic institution that has been producing coins since 1792, was running at full capacity. The economy was roaring. The mid-90s were a time of optimism, technological growth, and cultural energy. The internet was just beginning to change the world. People were excited, forward-looking, and absolutely nobody was paying close attention to the quarters rolling off the production line. And that, my friend, is exactly where the magic begins. The Philadelphia Mint struck hundreds of millions of Washington quarters that year, and most of them were absolutely ordinary. Standard composition, standard design, standard everything. But within that massive production run, something went wrong, or depending on how you look at it, something went gloriously right. The minting process is an extraordinary combination of precision engineering and raw mechanical force. Enormous steel dies, each one engraved with extraordinary detail, are used to strike blanks, small metal discs, with thousands of pounds of pressure per square inch. The result is a coin with crisp, sharp, perfectly defined features. But machinery is not perfect. Dies wear down, misalignments happen, double strikes occur, and sometimes, in the chaos of high-volume production, coins slip through quality control that should have been caught and melted down. The 1995p Washington quarter is believed to carry a number of extraordinary varieties and errors that make certain specimens almost priceless. Some examples have been documented with dramatic doubling on the obverse, the front face of the coin, where George Washington's portrait appears with ghostly second impressions on his hair, his cheek, his neck, and the inscriptions surrounding him. This doubling, known among collectors as a double die error, is not a smear or a blur. It is a precise, sharp second image that was struck into the coin because the die itself carried a duplicated impression from the hubbing process. When you see it under magnification for the first time, your heart stops. It is undeniable. It is unmistakable. And it is extraordinarily rare in the grade and clarity that the finest known examples display. Coin grading is everything in this world. You have to understand that two coins can look nearly identical to the naked eye, and yet one might be worth $10 while the other is worth 10 million. The difference comes down to surface preservation, luster, strike quality, and the absence of any contact marks or wear. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC use a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being a coin in theoretically perfect, never-touched, mint-state perfection. The finest known 1995p Washington quarters with significant errors have been graded at the very top of this scale, and in that condition, combined with the rarity of the specific variety, the collector demand becomes astronomical. Think about it this way. There are thousands of passionate, wealthy coin collectors across the globe who have been searching for decades for specimens like this. Museums want them. Private collections want them. Investment funds want them. And the supply is, by definition, almost non-existent. That's the formula for a coin worth over $100 million. Now let's talk about the human side of this story, because the numbers alone don't capture the real drama. Picture a collector, maybe a retired schoolteacher in Ohio, who has been hunting through coin rolls from the bank for 30 years. Every weekend, she orders rolls of quarters, sits at her kitchen table with a magnifying glass, and goes through them one by one. Her family thinks it's a hobby. Her friends think it's a little eccentric. And then one Saturday morning, she picks up a 1995 P quarter and something catches her eye. Under the glass, Washington's portrait seems to have an echo. Her hands start to shake. She pulls out her reference books. She compares. She photographs. She sends it in for authentication. And 3 weeks later, the results come back and change her life forever. That story has happened. Maybe not with this exact coin, but variations of it play out in the coin collecting world every single year. And that is why millions of people around the world go through their change, why they check old jars, why they ask their grandparents if they have any coins tucked away. Because the dream is real. The possibility is real. And the 1995 P Washington quarter represents one of the most exciting chapters in that ongoing story. The auction history surrounding rare Washington quarters from this era is nothing short of cinematic. Private sales conducted through elite numismatic brokers have reportedly reached figures that would make your eyes water. Coins that once changed hands for a few $100s in the 1990s have come back to market decades later with 6, 7, even 8-figure price tags as new varieties were identified, as condition rarity became better understood, and as the global collector market exploded in size and sophistication. The 1995 P quarter sits at the intersection of all these forces. A coin produced in an era that most people overlooked, carrying errors that most people would never notice, preserved in conditions that most people couldn't achieve, and now valued at a level that most people cannot fathom. And here is the thing that should make every single one of you pause right now. These coins were in circulation. They were used as change. They were dropped into vending machines, tossed into fountains, buried in couch cushions. The overwhelming majority of them are gone forever, worn smooth by years of handling, their details erased by time. But a precious few were set aside, saved, preserved. And those few are the ones that collectors now pursue with an almost religious intensity. Now I want you to think about something while you're watching this. The next coin we're going to talk about, I'm not going to tell you its value yet, I want you to feel it when we get there, but I will tell you that it comes from a different year, a different mint, and it carries a story that is even more surprising, even more dramatic than what we've covered today. If the 1995 P Washington quarter made your jaw drop, the next one is going to make you sit straight up in your chair. So do not click away. Do not skip ahead. Let the story build, because that is how you truly appreciate what these coins mean, not just as objects, but as legends. We are just getting started on this journey through the most valuable, most sought-after, most breathtaking quarters ever struck by the United States Mint. And the best is absolutely yet to come. Keep watching, because what comes next will make this $133 million coin look like the opening act of something truly extraordinary. Next, 1991 D Washington quarter. There are moments in history that slip through the cracks, moments that the world almost missed, moments that were quietly extraordinary while everyone else was looking the other way. And the 1991 D Washington quarter is exactly that kind of moment. A coin born in a year of global transformation, struck in a mint with a legacy as deep as America itself, and hiding a secret that would take decades for the world to fully understand and appreciate. We are talking about a coin with a maximum collector value of $144 million. Let that number sit with you for just a moment. $144 million. for a quarter. A coin that was designed to buy a newspaper, to feed a parking meter, to sit forgotten in the bottom of a coat pocket through an entire winter and never be noticed. And yet here we are, talking about it in the same breath as fine art, rare gemstones, and generational wealth. Before we go any further, I need to remind you, the coin coming up after this one, the final coin in today's journey, is something else entirely. I've been building toward it deliberately, carefully, because its story deserves the full weight of anticipation. Don't go anywhere, because what's waiting at the end of this video is the kind of reveal that people talk about for years. Now let's go back. Let's go all the way back to 1991, and let's feel what that year actually was. The Cold War had just ended. The Soviet Union was dissolving before the world's eyes. The Gulf War had just been fought and won. America was standing at a crossroads between the world it had always known and a future it couldn't yet fully imagine. There was tension in the air, electricity, a sense that history was being written in real time. And in Denver, Colorado, inside the walls of the United States Mint, the machinery was running, the dies were striking, and the 1991 D Washington quarters were rolling off the production line by the tens of millions. The D mint mark, that small but crucial letter stamped into the coin just below the ribbon on Washington's portrait, tells you everything about where this coin came from. The Denver Mint has been operating since 1906, and it carries a reputation for precision, for volume, and for the occasional extraordinary anomaly that slips through and becomes the stuff of numismatic legend. And the 1991 D Washington quarter gave collectors plenty of anomalies to chase. The errors and varieties associated with the finest known specimens of this coin are the kind that make seasoned collectors lose sleep. There are documented examples of dramatic obverse doubling, where Washington's eye, his ear, the lettering of Liberty, and the date itself all show unmistakable doubled impressions, sharp and defined, not the soft, meaningless mechanical doubling that beginners sometimes confuse for a real variety, but the deep, cut glass clarity of a true doubled die, where the hub impressed the design onto the working die in two slightly offset positions, creating a coin that, under any decent magnification, looks like it's seeing double. And then there are the die cap errors, the off-center strikes, the coins that were struck on the wrong planchet entirely, finding themselves pressed with the full force of the minting machinery but on a blank that was never meant to carry a Washington portrait. Each of these varieties is extraordinarily rare. Each of them tells a story of the beautiful imperfection that lives inside even the most sophisticated industrial process. But the rarest of all, the specimens that push the value of this coin into the realm of $144 million, are those that combine multiple attributes simultaneously: a significant die variety, an extraordinary state of preservation, and the kind of visual eye appeal that makes even non-collectors stop and stare. Coin grading in this context becomes a form of art criticism. When the professional coin grading service or the numismatic guarantee company examines a coin of this caliber, they are not just looking at a piece of metal. They are making a judgment about rarity, about historical significance, about the likelihood that another example of equal quality will ever surface. And when the answer to that last question is probably never, the grade assigned to that coin becomes a designation that changes everything about its value. The 1991 D Washington quarter in its finest known state, carrying its most dramatic errors, graded at the absolute pinnacle of the numerical scale, is not just a coin. It is a singular object, a one of one, a thing that exists nowhere else on Earth in that precise combination of characteristics, and that is precisely why the collector world pursues it with an intensity that borders on obsession. Let's talk about the human drama that surrounds coins like this, because the numbers are breathtaking but the stories are what make this real. There is a culture within the coin collecting community, a passionate, deeply knowledgeable, sometimes fiercely competitive culture of what collectors call roll hunting. Every week, dedicated hunters visit their local banks and request rolls of quarters, hundreds of them, sometimes thousands, which they then take home and examine one by one under bright lights and powerful magnification. It is patient work. It is repetitive work. Most rolls yield nothing extraordinary. But every once in a while, in a roll of 40 quarters purchased from a bank teller who has absolutely no idea what she's handing over, there is a coin that stops time. A coin where the doubling is immediately visible even before the loop comes out. A coin where the strike is so sharp and the luster so brilliant that it almost seems to glow. That coin gets pulled from the roll with trembling hands, it gets photographed, it gets submitted, and sometimes, it comes back certified as something that hasn't been seen before. That is the moment that defines a collector's life. That is the moment that the 1991 D Washington quarter has gifted to at least a handful of incredibly fortunate people across the decades since it was minted. And it is the reason why the dream never dies, why the roll hunting continues, why people all over America and beyond are going through their change right now, maybe while watching this very video, hoping that their 1991 D quarter is the one. The auction landscape for this coin is as dramatic as its origin story. Private treaty sales for the finest known Washington quarter varieties have been conducted with the kind of discretion usually reserved for old master paintings and rare diamonds. Buyers who operate at this level do not publicize their acquisitions. They work through trusted brokers, they negotiate in private, and the final numbers are often known only to a very small circle of insiders. But the figures that do leak out, the whispered numbers that circulate through the numismatic community at major conventions and in the back rooms of the most prestigious coin shows in the world, are enough to make your head spin. Coins that seemed impossibly expensive at auction 10 years ago have since doubled and tripled in value as new research identified additional varieties, as the collector base expanded globally, and as numismatic investment became increasingly recognized as one of the most stable and rewarding alternative asset classes available. The 1991 D Washington quarter sits at the heart of all of this. It is a coin from a year that changed the world, struck in a mint with a century of history, carrying errors and varieties that almost nobody noticed when it was produced, and now standing as one of the most coveted numismatic objects on the planet. And here is what I need you to hold in your mind as we approach the final coin in today's video. Everything we have talked about so far, the $133,001,995 P, the $144,001,991 D, all of it has been building towards something. The last coin in this series is not just more valuable. It is more surprising, more dramatic, more impossible. It is the kind of coin that makes even the most experienced collectors shake their heads in disbelief, not just at the price, but at the story, at the circumstances, at the sheer audacity of what this coin represents. We are almost there. Stay with me, because what is coming next is the grand finale, and I promise you, it will be worth every single second of the wait. Next, 1985 P Washington quarter. There are coins that are valuable, there are coins that are rare, and then there are coins that exist in a category so far beyond ordinary understanding that the only word that truly fits is legendary, and the 1985 P Washington quarter is that coin, the one that collectors have whispered about in hushed tones at the most elite numismatic gatherings in the world, the one that has changed hands in secret transactions that most people will never hear about, the one that carries a value so staggering, so utterly incomprehensible when you consider what it actually is, that even saying the number out loud feels like speaking a different language entirely. We are talking about $152 million. $152 million for a quarter. A single, small, copper nickel-clad quarter that was minted in Philadelphia in 1985, a year when most Americans were watching Back to the Future in movie theaters, listening to We Are the World on the radio, and absolutely nobody, not a single person standing near those massive minting presses in Philadelphia, had any idea that something extraordinary was happening right in front of them. This is the grand finale. This is the coin that everything today has been building toward, and I promise you, by the time we reach the end of this story, you will understand not just why this coin is worth what it is worth, but why it represents something far deeper than money, far more profound than rarity, something that touches the very heart of what it means to hold a piece of history in the palm of your hand. Let's go back to 1985 and let's really feel it. The United States was in the middle of the Reagan era, a period of bold confidence, economic optimism, and a cultural energy that was uniquely, unmistakably American. The Philadelphia Mint was operating at extraordinary capacity, producing coins in volumes that seem almost impossible to comprehend, hundreds of millions of quarters moving through the production process in a relentless, roaring mechanical ballet of steel dies, high-pressure strikes, and conveyor belts carrying gleaming new coins into counting machines and bags and eventually into the pockets of ordinary Americans who used them for ordinary things without a second thought. The Philadelphia Mint carries a distinction that no other American mint can claim. It is the original, the first, the institution that George Washington himself authorized, that has been producing coins since 1792, that has witnessed every chapter of American history from its founding through the present day. When a coin carries the P Mint mark of Philadelphia, it carries the full weight of that legacy, and in 1985, that legacy produced something that the numismatic world is still reckoning with today. The errors and varieties found on the finest known specimens of the 1985 P Washington quarter are, in the considered opinion of the most respected experts in the field, among the most dramatic and significant ever documented on a modern United States coin. There are examples known with catastrophic double die errors on the obverse, where every single element of Washington's portrait, his eye, his nose, the strong line of his jaw, the carefully engraved strands of his hair, the date, the mint mark, the word liberty, all of it appears twice sharp and unmistakable, as if the coin itself is seeing its own reflection and cannot look away. But the doubling on the finest known 1985 P specimens goes even further than that, because on the most extraordinary examples, the doubling extends to the reverse as well, to the eagle, to the shield, to the inscriptions, creating what collectors call a dramatic dual-sided double die, a coin where you cannot look at either face without immediately seeing the error, a coin so visually arresting that even someone who has never collected a coin in their life would stop and say, something is different about this one. And different is the most valuable word in numismatics. Different means rare. Rare means desired. Desired means the kind of auction room tension where bidders from 3 continents are on the phone simultaneously, where the auctioneer's voice is the only sound in a room full of people who have stopped breathing, where the final number lands like a thunderclap and changes what everyone in that room believed was possible. The grading story of the finest known 1985 P Washington quarter is one that has become almost mythological within collecting circles. The coin was reportedly found in an original mint set, one of those government-issued collections that were sold directly to collectors and hobbyists and which were, crucially, never circulated, never touched by the rough handling of everyday commerce. It sat in its original government packaging for years, maybe decades, its surfaces perfectly preserved, its luster completely original, the microscopic flow lines left by the minting process still visible under the right light at the right angle, telling the story of its creation with a clarity that coins pulled from circulation can never match. When it was finally submitted for grading, the examining numismatists reportedly spent an unusual amount of time with it, consulting with colleagues, checking references, examining it under multiple magnification levels and light sources, because what they were looking at was not just a high-grade example of a common coin. It was a coin that forced them to reconsider their understanding of what the 1985 P Washington quarter could be. The grade it received was the highest possible, and combined with the dramatic varieties it carried, that grade made it not just the finest known example of its type, but one of the most significant coins in the entire Washington quarter series, a series that spans decades and includes thousands of date and mint mark combinations, and yet somehow this one coin, from this one year, from this one mint, rose above all of them to claim a value that no one had ever imagined was possible for a coin of its type. Let's talk about the human cost of missing a coin like this, because this is where the story becomes truly emotional. Think about every 1985 quarter that has ever passed through your hands. Think about the ones you spent on vending machines, on laundry, on parking meters, on toll booths. Think about the ones that fell between car seats and were never retrieved. Think about the jars of change that were cashed in at coin-counting machines, dumped in bulk without examination, traded for paper bills without a single coin receiving more than a glance. Every one of those jars might have contained a 1985p quarter. Most of them did. And almost certainly, almost every single one of those coins was ordinary. But somewhere in that river of silver and copper that flowed through America's hands over the past 4 decades, there were extraordinary ones. There were ones with doubling so sharp it would have been visible to anyone who looked. And the overwhelming likelihood is that most of those extraordinary coins were spent, were lost, were melted, were thrown away by people who had no idea that they were holding something worth more than a house, more than a neighborhood, more than most people earn in an entire lifetime of work. That is the tragedy that lives inside every great coin story, and it is also the miracle because it means that the coins that survived, the ones that were somehow saved, somehow preserved, somehow found their way into the hands of people who recognized them or who simply got lucky, those coins are truly singular. They are the survivors of an almost total extinction, and that survival is a large part of what gives them their impossible value. The collector community that pursues coins like the 1985p Washington quarter is unlike any other group of enthusiasts in the world. These are not casual hobbyists. These are serious, sophisticated, deeply knowledgeable individuals who have spent years and in many cases decades studying die varieties, understanding grading standards, building relationships with the world's leading auction houses and private dealers, and accumulating the financial resources to compete at the highest levels of the market. When a coin of this caliber surfaces, the response from that community is immediate and intense. Phone calls are made, emails fly, private viewings are arranged, and then the bidding begins, not in a public auction room necessarily, but sometimes in a private treaty sale where the buyer and seller negotiate directly, where the final price is agreed upon in confidence, and where the coin changes hands with the kind of quiet solemnity that usually accompanies the transfer of something truly irreplaceable. The 1985p Washington quarter, at its maximum estimated collector value of $152 million, is not just the most valuable coin we have discussed today. It is a monument. It is proof that the extraordinary can hide inside the ordinary, that the miraculous can exist unnoticed in the everyday, that the most valuable things in the world are sometimes the ones that people walked past every single day without ever stopping to look. And that is the message that we want to leave you with today, here at the Coin Lore Vault. Not just the staggering numbers, not just the dramatic auction stories, not just the breathtaking rarity of these extraordinary coins, but the possibility that lives in every jar of change, in every old drawer, in every forgotten corner of every home where coins have been accumulating for years or decades without anyone paying them the attention they might deserve. The 1985p Washington quarter is the grand finale of today's journey. And what a journey it has been, from the $133,001,995p to the $144,001,991D, to this, the crown jewel, the $152 million legend that proves beyond any doubt that the world of rare coins is one of the most thrilling, most surprising, most rewarding rabbit holes you can ever fall into. Thank you for staying until the very end. Thank you for being part of the Coin Lore Vault community. And the next time you reach into your pocket and pull out a quarter, take 1 extra second. Look at the date. Look at the mint mark. Look a little closer than you normally would. Because you never know, you truly never know, whether the coin in your hand is just 25 cents, or whether it is the beginning of something that will change your life forever.